Republic Act 8371, otherwise known as Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act, an act to recognize, protect, and promote the rights of indigenous cultural communities or indigenous people, creating a national commission on indigenous people, establishing implementing mechanism, and appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes.
Ancestral domain. Ancestral domain, it refers to all the areas generally belonging to ICs or IPs, comprising lands, inland waters, coastal areas, and natural resources. Therein held under a claim of ownership, occupied and possessed by ICs or IPs by themselves or through their ancestors, commonly or individually since time immemorial.
The right of ownership. The right to claim ownership over land, bodies of water, traditionally and actually occupied by ICCS and IPS sacred places, traditional hunting, fishing grounds, and all improvements made by them at any time within the domain.
Right to develop land and natural resources. Subject to Section 56 hereof, right to develop, control, use land and natural resources traditionally owned, used, or occupied within the territories.
Right to stay in the territories. The right to stay in the territories or not to be removed therefrom. No ICCs or IPs will be relocated without their free and prior consent, nor through any means other than eminent domain.
The right in case of displacement. In case of displacement occur as a result of natural catastrophe, the state shall endeavor to resettle the displaced ICCS and IPS in suitable areas where they can have temporary life support system.
Right to regulate entry of migrants. Right to regulate the entry of migrants settled and organization into the domain.
Right to safe and clean air and water. For this purpose, the ICCs or IAPs shall have an access to integrated system for the management of their islands, water, and air space.
Rights to claim parts of ancestral domain who has been reserved for various purposes, except for those who has been reserved and common public welfare and service.
Right to resolve conflict. Right to resolve land conflict in accordance with the customary law of the area where the land is located, and only in default thereof shall the complaint be submitted to amicable settlement and to the court justice whenever necessary.
The right to ancestral land. It is the right of ownership and possession of ICCs and IPs to their ancestral land by the virtue of native titles. The state shall recognize and protect this right.
Right to transfer land or property. Such right shall include the right to transfer land or property rights to or among the same members of the same ICCs or IPs, subject to customary law and traditions of the community services.
Right to redemption. In cases where it is shown that the transfer of land's property rights by virtue of any agreement or device to a non-member of the concerned ICCs or IPS is vitiated by the consent of ICCs or IPS.
Right to self-governance and empowerment. Indigenous people has a right to economic, social, and cultural well-being. Free, prior, informed content and use of resources there.
Social justice and human rights, equal protection and non-discrimination, rights during armed conflict, equal opportunity and treatment, basic services, protection to women, children, and youth, integrated system of education. Right to cultural integrity, protection of culture, traditions, and institutions. This must be considered in the formulation and application of national plans and policies. Access to cultural opportunities, recognition of cultural diversity, practice and revitalize their customs and traditions, and the state must protect manifestations thereof, religious, cultural sites and ceremonies, funds for archaeological and historical sites, ownership, and recognition of cultural and intellectual rights.